Imagine this scenario. You walk into a negotiation room. Management slides a piece of paper across the table. It offers a $5 an hour raise. Immediate. Cash in hand. Everyone at the table eyes it. It looks like victory. But then you flip the page. To pay for that $5, they want to remove the double time clause for Sunday work. They want to switch the health plan to a high deductible model. And they want the right to use subcontractors whenever business needs dictate. That $5 isn't a raise, it's a loan. And the interest rate is your job security. That is the trap of cost neutral bargaining.
Welcome back to the show. That cold open paints a picture that I think a lot of workers, union or non union, might recognize. The feeling that every time you take a step forward in pay, the ground under your feet gets a little less stable. Today, we are dissecting two very different philosophies of labor negotiation: cost neutral versus progressive. We're looking at this not just as a financial discussion, but as a career discussion. Why do some contracts build long term security while others seem to turn the workplace into a revolving door? Alex, you have spent years analyzing labor agreements. This term, cost neutral, it sounds innocuous, it sounds balanced. Why is it dangerous?
It is dangerous precisely because it sounds responsible. In a corporate boardroom, cost neutral simply means the total labor budget does not increase, even if wages do. If I pay you more, I must spend less on something else. It treats the workers' compensation package as a zero sum game. If a union accepts a cost neutral framework, they are essentially agreeing to cannibalize their own contract. They are selling the furniture to pay the rent. You might get that wage hike, but you fund it by surrendering the structural protections, seniority rights, safety standards, staffing minimums that took decades to build.
So it's a shell game. The money moves from the benefits column to the wages column, but the company's bottom line stays flat. But let's play devil's advocate. If inflation is high and members are hurting at the grocery store right now, isn't liquid cash what matters most? Why should a worker care about gray contract language or bidding rights if they can't pay their bills?
That is exactly the wedge management uses. They leverage immediate financial pain to extract long term structural concessions. Here is why the worker should care. That gray language determines if you have a job next year. Let's look at the revolving door phenomenon. In a cost neutral deal, management often demands flexibility. That is the key word. It usually means easier termination policies or the ability to bypass seniority. Once that language is in the contract, the older, higher paid workers, the ones who just got that big raise, become targets. If I can fire a 20-year veteran for a minor infraction and replace them with a new hire at the bottom of the pay scale, I have just saved the company money. The raise you won effectively put a target on your back.
This leads us to the concept of the two-tier system, which seems to be the hallmark of these cost-neutral deals. We saw this explode in the 1980s and 90s. Can you explain how that mechanism works to undermine the union from the inside?
The two-tier system is the ultimate cost-neutral tool. The union negotiates a raise for current members, but agrees that all future hires will start at a lower rate, with worse benefits, and maybe never reach the top pay scale. It is a poison pill. The current members vote yes because they get their money and think, well, I'm not the new guy, so it doesn't affect me. But historically, this destroys the unit. Within 5 years, those new guys are half the workforce. They look at the person next to them doing the exact same job for $10 more an hour, and they get angry, not at management, but at the union. The company has successfully divided the workforce. Solidarity creates leverage, division creates weakness, and once you are weak, the company comes back for the rest of the protections in the next contract.
It destroys the vested interest we talked about. If I know I can never reach the top tier, I have no reason to stay. I'm not building a career, I'm just working a gig. And that turnover benefits the employer because they never have to pay out full pensions or top rate wages. Let's pivot to the alternative: progressive negotiations. This sounds great in theory, but what does it actually look like in practice? How is it different from just asking for more?
Rejecting the premise that labor costs must remain flat, it ties worker compensation to company growth and productivity. The logic is we are generating more value than we did 3 years ago. Therefore, our share of that value must increase without us giving back the protections we already won. A prime example is the 2023 Teamsters negotiations with UPS. The union leadership made it clear early on no concessions. They didn't just ask for a wage increase, they demanded the elimination of the 22.4 job classification, a two-tier driver system that paid some drivers less for the same work. They won $30 billion in new money over the life of the contract, secured air conditioning in trucks, and ended the forced overtime tiers. They didn't trade safety for wages, they improved both.
That shift from defensive to offensive seems to be the defining characteristic. Instead of saying, what do we have to give up to get a raise, they asked, how much of the profit we created are we taking home?
Exactly. And this extends to the UAW stand up strike against the big three automakers that same year. For decades, auto workers had accepted cost neutral deals to save jobs, giving up cost of living adjustments or COLA, and allowing temporary workers to flood the plants. In 2023, they flipped the script. They demanded the reinstatement of COLA and a path to permanent status for temps. They linked their security to the company's record profits. That is the progressive model. Shared growth. If the company is healthy, the worker should be secure, not just paid slightly more while being less safe.
This brings us to the most critical piece of the puzzle, the membership. You cannot execute a progressive negotiation strategy if the membership is only looking at the hourly wage number. The company knows how to dazzle workers with a signing bonus. So, how do we build that environment? How do leaders engage the rank and file to understand that no concessions is worth fighting for, even if it means rejecting that quick cash up front?
It starts with education. Transparency is the antidote to the cost neutral trap. Management relies on the fact that most people don't read the 50-page contract. They read the one-page summary the company posts in the break room. That summary highlights the raise and hides the takeaway. Effective union leadership educates members on total compensation and work rules. They explain that a raise is useless if the just cause discipline language is watered down to at will. If a manager can fire you for looking at them wrong, your $40 hourly rate drops to zero instantly. Leaders need to show members that the contract is their career insurance policy.
It sounds like we need to redefine what winning looks like. It's not just the paycheck, it's the control over your daily life.
Precisely. And members need to understand they have a vested interest in the long game. If you treat the job like a temporary stop, you settle for the quick buck. If you view it as a 20-year career that will feed your family and fund your retirement, you fight for the work rules. You fight for the seniority language. There is a concept called pattern bargaining. In a progressive model, when one shop wins a strong contract without concessions, it sets a floor for the entire industry. When members understand that their vote impacts not just their wallet, but the standard for their entire trade, they become much harder to bribe with a signing bonus.
I want to touch on the gray language you mentioned earlier. This seems to be where the progressive model really distinguishes itself, in the boring, technical details of enforcement. How does clear language protect a career?
Gray language is management's best friend. Phrases like where practicable or subject to business needs are trap doors. A cost neutral contract is full of them. We will offer overtime by seniority where practicable. That means the manager decides when it's convenient to follow the rules. A progressive contract fights for absolutes. Overtime shall be offered by seniority. Period. No wiggle room. This clarity is what provides actual job security. It removes favoritism. It enforces due process. When a union refuses to trade this language for money, they are preserving the dignity of the workplace. You cannot put a price tag on the ability to go to work without fear of arbitrary discipline.
So, the takeaway for the listener, whether they're a rank and file member or a bargaining committee leader, is that you have to look at the trade offs. If the company offers a raise, look for what they are taking back with the other hand.
Always look for the offset. In a healthy, progressive relationship, the offset for a raise should be the worker's labor and productivity, not their rights. If the company is profitable, the cost of the raise is covered by the profit the workers help generate. You shouldn't have to pay for your own raise by giving up your safety gear or your seniority.
That is a powerful distinction. You shouldn't have to pay for your own raise. It reframes the entire negotiation from a purchase to a distribution of value. To wrap this up, if you are on the floor today looking at a contract proposal, what is the one question you should ask yourself before checking the yes or no box?
Ask yourself, does this contract make me more secure in my job 5 years from now, or just richer this Friday? If the money comes with weakened rules, gray language, or a two-tier system, you're voting for your eventual replacement. But if the contract secures your rights and your pay, that is progressive. That is a career builder.
Building careers, not just balancing the books. Alex, thank you for breaking down the mechanics of the deal.
My pleasure.